People who were homeless once. How did you get your life on the track back? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 10. My turning point came unexpectedly. One cold night, I was approached by a kind-hearted volunteer from a local homeless organization in my town's version of Skid Row. She offered me a warm meal and, more importantly, a listening ear. It was the first time in months that I felt seen and heard. This encounter led me to a local shelter where I found not just refuge, but a community that supported me. With their help, I started to rebuild my life. I volunteered at the shelter, which kept me busy and gave me a sense of purpose. I was eventually able to secure a part-time job through the shelter's network, which was a major stepping stone for me. The job provided enough stability to rent a small room. It's been a journey of small steps, but each one has been a victory. I've realized the power of community support and the strength that comes from within when you're pushed to the brink. Number 9. I was one of the working homeless. What saved me was getting a new job across the country, where I have family I could stay with until I got back on my feet. I can't help but think there are a lot of people that find themselves homeless and just need a few months of housing and stability to get back on track again. I am glad you were able to find that and get sorted. Yes, I work in homelessness services and people are so angry about the visible homelessness, tents/camping. What people don't seem to realize is that so much of our government money goes to paying for things like eviction prevention or ticket home programs which help people not end up in a visible homelessness situation. Intervention steps are so important. Number 8. Was homeless for 6 years, relied on my brother and then my wife's family to put a roof over my head. I job hopped around to better and better jobs until I landed my current position that pays me well and gives good hours. This allowed me to be able to afford to buy a house, cheaper than renting in my area, and finally leave homelessness. Issued as my job is being cut Q1 2024 due to budget cuts. I'm trying to find something else, but I have had no luck so far. If I have to go on EI, things will be tight but barely doable with a lot of cutbacks. Number 7. I crashed with a friend for a while, then stayed with an ex for a few months. Kept trying to figure out how to make money doing freelance and applying to jobs, but nothing was working. Finally, I had to give up and become a stripper. That was awful. But I saved up money while working at a club for a year, then heard about a coding bootcamp. Blew through my entire savings studying programming for 3 months. In the end, I got a good paying tech job, and now I'm a software developer. Number 6. I left home at 18 the day of my high school graduation. Abusive home. 2 huge problems when you're homeless: shelter and food. I had a car, 1988 Ford Escort, not bragging, and was working at a restaurant as a dishwasher, and you got a free shift meal. As the dishwasher, a lot of time food came back untouched. I'd sneak it into a bag and take it with me and have food till I worked again. Chef caught me. Took me outside. I started taking off my apron, figured I'm fired. He lights up a cigarette, asks what's going on. I tell him I'm kinda going through something at the moment. He gives me actual food each night, and 2 weeks later his wife and him cleared out a corner of the space above his garage and let me stay there. 2 rules: do something like mow the lawn and don't be in it. That was the start of getting my life on the right track. Having somebody show you kindness when you had none for so long is overwhelming. He died a few years later of an OD, tough business. But I'll never forget what he did for me. Rest in peace, Chef. Number 5. I was homeless when I was 16. Getting into a youth shelter in town I heard about was the most important thing. I had to pay a fee to stay there, but as I was working part-time after school when I got kicked out, I was able to afford the $300 a month for a room and 1 meal a day. The most important thing I remember was being kind to the staff and keeping my head down / not engaging too much with the other girls, as there was a lot of drug use and bad attitudes to deal with. Not everyone, there were plenty of people just in a bad position trying their best too. After 6 months I was able to get assistance with a shared apartment that was geared to income. I had to leave school before my last year as I moved too far and had to afford food and rent. I went back to finish a few years later. If I didn't have somewhere safe to sleep, and people to talk to and help me look for a better situation, I would probably be in a much worse place. I managed to find a great partner, buy a home, and have a career I really enjoy. I have a lot of fallout from that time, however, and still deal with feelings associated with instability. Some life experiences really shape who we become, in one way or another, and I think being homeless has to be one of the most difficult things to experience. Number 4. Classic addiction story here. Got my first grown-up job with amazing benefits. Started getting medical checkups done since I hadn't had insurance since I was a kid. This led to some somewhat intense dental work being done. This was before the 06 to 07 crackdown on RX narcotics, so the dentist was giving me like 30x hydrocodone dose/1 refill every time I went, even if it was for something small like cavities being filled. I went to the dentist 1x/2x per month for about 6 months straight. I was loaded with narcotic painkillers. Boom. Welcome to addiction. Over the years, it would progress worse and worse. I'd end up with trips to federal prison, 15+ local arrests in various parishes/counties. I didn't stop until I had alienated every single person in my life, and without a support system or the will to get sober, I ended up homeless. Before the addiction, I worked in finance and did SEO/internet marketing on the side. Once I was homeless, I went to Walmart to find receipts on the ground. I would look for a receipt where someone paid in cash. I'd go steal the items on the receipt and bring it to the service counter for a cash refund. I used that money to get myself some new shoes and to go get my driver's license renewed/I'm suspended. I then used my new ID to go get a library card. I would sleep outside as close to the library as possible. At the library, I could use the computers in 1-hour increments, and I used this time to do a lot of freelance writing for finance-related websites. With the money I made from the freelance work, I got better clothes, got a gym membership to shower and stay in shape, and I started putting the broken pieces of my life back together. I got online and looked for someone who was needing a roommate, because I could now afford to put a roof over my head. I found someone who was subletting a spare room in a really nice house that was in a perfect part of town. I was hesitant at first because I was just some convicted felon, and the person subletting the room was a sorority girl who was younger than me who just finished her degree. Well, apparently I had no reason to be hesitant, because me and this girl hit it off from day one. We got along really well and were like instantly best friends who did everything together. I would eventually upgrade from working in 1-hour increments at the library to walking to a fast food place at 4:30 a.m. to open up, and at 11:30 a.m. when I left, I walked over to a day labor place to do afternoon and warehouse work. All while still doing the freelance writing on the side still. It fucked, and I had to do that routine for a couple of years before things would start to go back to what I would consider normal. Remember the girl above who was renting a room? Fast forward to today, and I am married to the most amazing and supportive woman in the fucking world, the one who had a room for rent. We just bought a $350,000 house. I'm at working in finance at a 6-figure job despite numerous felonies. My wife and I also own a really fun side business selling cat toys/catnip. Even though I met her at the tail end of my homelessness, nothing in my life would be where it is now without her. She gave me the support I needed to keep powering through. She believed in me so much that it made it impossible to fail. She took off of work to go to court with me. If I had forgotten bench warrants, she would be right there to bail me out of jail. Anytime my family had anything negative to say about me, she would stand up for me and let them know how hard I was working to turn my life around. I would be dead or in prison without her, and I'm going to spend the rest of my fucking life making sure she is as happy and healthy as humanly possible. I will gladly come to work 6 days a week if it means I can afford to provide her with a comfortable lifestyle. I will gladly spend my evenings and 1 day off working on our side business if it means we can have a comfortable retirement and maybe take a trip to Disney here and there. There is nothing in this world that I could ever pay her back with for how much help and support she's given me, but I'm sure as going to try it every single day to let her know how thankful I am. Number 3. I was walking across Pioneer Square in Portland, or with Scrabble Steve. We had just made enough money asking for spare change to cop a bag of heroin, and were on our way to go pick it up and get well. I had been wearing the same clothes for about a week. I hadn't showered in about 2 weeks. It had just rained the night before, and my socks were wet, nasty, worn out, and just fucking gross. I turn to Steve and ask, "Yo, you know anywhere giving out socks?" He stops, looks me dead in the eyes, and says, "Socks? I don't give a fuck about my socks. As long as I'm high, that shit doesn't matter." Look at my shoes. He raises one of his feet and easily peels the sole apart. The only thing holding them together was some worn-out duct tape. You think I really give a fuck about my socks? It was that moment I stopped and asked myself, what was I really doing out here? Just struggling to not get depressic. Chasing a bag from one single-occupancy locking public bathroom to another within a 30-block radius of Pioneer Square. Cold, wet, miserable. Dopey sick, unwanted. used, invisible. I just couldn't do it anymore. I knew I was capable of so much more. I made a decision to go to an outpatient program I'd failed 3x before. It was the only place I knew that would maybe accept me. I slept across the street to make my groups. I took the suggestions given to me and started going to 12-step meetings. The outpatient center got me into a shelter after a few weeks. Now, almost 12 years later, I work in the addictions field. I am a homeowner, a runner, and accomplished triathlete, a husband, and a dog dad to a big-ass 75-pound sassy floof ball. All because I made a decision to be done with dope. If you're struggling with substance abuse and or mental health, there is a way out, and you can do it. Number 2. I was in a homeless shelter, found a job, then saved all the money I could save. I also had food stamps. Found an income-based apartment practically next door to where I work, so I didn't have to walk 2 miles to work anymore. I've been at my job and living in my apartment for 3 years now. I still don't have a car, but I'll get one eventually. I don't need one, so not top priority, but saving up for a car is so hard, haha. I'm right there with you, been at a homeless shelter before. Still don't have a car either, but we take shit day by day, right? I'm making it a goal of mine to get a used car this year. Number 1. I joined the Army. Through a lot of bad decisions and bad luck, I found myself couch surfing with friends and sleeping in my car. I was in school when this happened, so I would park my car in a grocery store parking lot, walk to school, and shower in the men's gym. Eventually, it started getting too cold for me to sleep in the car. Where I live, the snowfall is measured in feet, not inches. So I was brainstorming how the hell I was going to get out of this mess. Because once you fall into that hole, it's almost impossible to get out without help. So I just said, F it, and walked into an Army recruitment station across the street from campus. Of course, that was 2000, so joke was on me. Alright folks, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us today. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your own story or thoughts in the comments below. We love to hear from you. I'll see you in the next video.